One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As most Americans know, our pledge to the American flag concludes with those words. Where did that phrase come from? We owe a minister named Francis Bellamy for the original inspiration for our pledge. Bellamy went to work for a Boston-based magazine, Youth's Companion, which was published from 1827 to 1929, an impressive 102-year run. Bellamy's pledge was not exactly what we recite today. It originally read, quote, my flag, end quote, without saying whose or what nation's flag was the object of the pledge. That was rectified in 1932 when, quote, of the United States of America, end quote, was substituted. The phrase under God was added in 1954 by an act of Congress at the urging of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was responding to citizens' petitions. Is America, in fact, quote, one nation under God, end quote? Well, certainly we are. In one respect, we cannot not be. The sovereign God overlooks our affairs, whether we would like him to or not, whether we acknowledge his presence or not, whether we worship him or ignore him. In that sense, the phrase is true and will always be true, but let's pick the phrase apart a bit. There is disagreement on this point today, some arguing that America is a country and or a federation or union of sovereign states and not a nation. Some point to the fact that the word union appears 6 times in the Constitution. Foreign nations and the law of nations are the only use of the word nation, and neither refers directly to the United States. But the evidence is strong that the most prominent of America's founding fathers considered us a true nation. After the Constitution went into effect with the 9th ratification, various founding fathers did refer to the Union in speeches and letters, but they frequently used the word nation as well. Alexander Hamilton compared us with other nations almost incessantly as Washington's Secretary of State, but his boss used the word nearly as much. In fact, George Washington can rightfully be called one of the strongest nationalists of the founding era. Even before the Constitution was ratified, Washington, as a private citizen, albeit a celebrated one, wrote a circular letter to the governors of the several states. He ended the letter by stating, quote, I now make it my earnest prayer that God would have you and the state over which you preside in his holy protection, that he would incline the hearts of the citizens to cultivate a spirit of subordination and obedience to government, to entertain a brotherly affection and love for one another, for their fellow citizens of the United States at large, and particularly for their brethren who have served in the field, and finally that he would most graciously be pleased to dispose us all to do justice, to love mercy, and to demean ourselves with that charity, humility, and pacific temper of the mind, which were the characteristics of the divine author of our blessed religion, without a humble imitation of whose example we can never hope to be a happy nation. In his first inaugural address, drafted by his friend and new Congressman James Madison, Washington said, no people can be bound to acknowledge and adore the invisible hand, which conducts the affairs of men more than the people of the United States. Every step by which they have advanced to the character of an independent nation seems to have been distinguished by some token of providential agency. End quote. In his first Thanksgiving proclamation as president, Washington began by insisting that, quote, it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey his will, to be grateful for his benefits, and humbly to implore his protection and favors. End quote. Wouldn't it be fitting and proper to read President Washington's Thanksgiving proclamation each year at church on that holiday? To a Jewish congregation in Savannah, Georgia, President Washington wrote, the Jehovah God, who had delivered the Hebrews from their Egyptian oppressors, has been conspicuous in establishing these United States as an independent nation. James Madison called us a nation. Thomas Jefferson, James Wilson, John Adams, and John Jay did as well. There is no doubt America's founding fathers viewed us as, quote, a nation under God, and for them, that meant the God of the Bible. Donald Lutz reports, quote, Scholars in recent years seem to have forgotten the degree to which religious ideas permeated the political world of the 17th and 18th centuries, end quote. Carl Sandburg once wrote, quote, when a nation goes down or a society perishes, one condition may always be found. They forgot where they came from. They lost sight of what had brought them along, end quote. I'll conclude with the words of Ronald Reagan, who said, quote, if ever we forget we are a nation under God, we will be a nation gone under, end quote. The United States could never be a nation that is not under God. But we can either be a nation that acknowledges that fact and seeks God's superintending care, one that humbly asks God to heal our land, or we can be a nation that insists on going it alone. The choice is ours. Gary Porter is Executive Director of the Constitution Leadership Initiative, CLI, a project to promote a better understanding of the U.S. Constitution by the American people. I am Janine Turner, founder of Constituting America. I and Kathy Gillespie, Constituting America's CEO, thank you for joining us for our 13th annual 90-day study. Our annual studies are entitled 90 plus 90 equals 180. History holds the key to the future because history does hold the key to the future, or as Shakespeare said, the past is prologue. Join us tomorrow. Right back here, same bat channel, same bat time for those of you who are as old as I and watched Batman, the TV show. Don't forget to check out our essays on American exceptionalism. It's our study from last year. If you go to the constitutingamerica.org and scroll down, you'll see the studies, and you'll see a little red button that says American Exceptionalism Study. Really good, so that we have 90 days of 90 tools in our toolbox so that we can have a really good civil civic conversation about why America is exceptional. Have a great day. We thank Amanda Hughes for championing these wonderful studies and for Bobby Rodriguez for editing these wonderful essays and sending them out there into the universe. Have a wonderful day.